Good morning and welcome. This is Sunrise and I am Alero Itu.
Good morning. Welcome to the program. I'm Ayo Makinde. Hope you've had your own cup of cocoa this morning.
Oh?
Cocoa. Yeah, this is a very old newspaper, but it's not a newspaper actually. It's don't look at me like that.
I think you have eyes in the side of your head.
Well, it's a 180-degree vision. If I say I have 360 vision, I'm a liar.
Isn't that the one they call 20/20 vision?
Oh, well, that's we'll have to ask George Benson about that one. So,
yeah, so you're carrying that Auditor General's report.
Yeah, I'm just looking
from which you quote all the time.
Yeah, this is just one of several. If you go online, you'll find all kinds of reports. I think it dates back, is it 2012 or 2015? Auditor General's report. One of the questions that I keep asking is, who has been held accountable? Maybe I don't know. Could someone please educate me? Who's been held accountable? Who's been asked to return money that they took from the Federal Republic of Nigeria simply because they didn't do what was expected of them? So I'm just looking at this again. I mean, would we need to borrow money? Okay, for instance, number one item on this. This is an analysis of the 2017 Auditor General for the Federation's report. Number one item. 16 revenue-generating agencies did not remit. Key questions. Why borrowing when there are unremitted funds in the hands of the MDAs? How much is this? 19,025,384,109.29. 26 MDAs did not deduct and or remit. 1,650,000,000. You know, by the time they calculated everything, it came to, in fact, there is one, unauthorized deductions from the Federation account by revenue collecting agencies. This act contravenes the provisions of Section 162, Sub 1 of the 1999 Constitution. And guess how much they took out? Well, according to this Auditor General, the analysis of the Auditor General's report of 2017, 1,555,857,565 naira 9 kobo.
There's 9 kobo on top again. The point now is, whose job is it?
Cumulatively, it came to
2 trillion.
2,066 billion on and on and on.
No, 2.6 trillion.
Yeah.
Of course, the question that comes to mind readily is, whose job is it to ask questions at the end of every year?
Oh, it's the Public Accounts Committee of the National Assembly, the Senate, and or House of Representatives.
And I'm sure the Ministry of Finance also has something to do with this.
Well, this is the Auditor General's report. The Auditor General, I don't think the Auditor General reports to the Finance Minister. I don't know if that's okay, but I don't think that is it. So it's the job of the Auditor General to come up with this report.
Yeah.
And it's they present it to the Senate Committee on Public Accounts.
Yeah.
And the questions have been asked of the chairman of the Senate Committee for a long time, and that's Senator Matthew Orogide. And one of the things that you will hear him say is, look, we do our bit, but it doesn't seem like, because it has to be, I think the rule is that committee has to be headed by the opposition. So whether or not that's doing any job it's supposed to do, I guess that's it. So that's just from 1 year.
2.6 trillion.
2.06 actually.
And nobody's asking nobody asked any questions?
No, people are asking questions. Who will bring out the answers?
And there are no answers to those questions. We are asking the question
now,
again.
This analysis was done in 2020, November 2020.
And this is 2023.
And this is 2023. And maybe if we'll hear something after this program or during this program. But 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, Auditor General's reports have ministries, departments, and agencies all indicted. And who's asking questions.
Talking about ministries, departments, and agencies, you sent me some material showing that there were over 900 MDAs.
Oh, that's according to I think that's the budget office DG, Mr. Ben
Akabueze, yes.
Said we have about 940 something ministries, departments, and agencies, and about 500 and something public corporations. So, and he said that according to that report, that's a huge burden on public
the national purse.
On the public, on the national purse. So, if you're wondering where all the money that we claim to spend on recurrent expenditure is going, that's it. And some of these agencies...
Recurrent expenditure, I think in the last year or so, was up to about approaching 4 trillion.
And I
so
wonder,
if you make, how much do we make? And you spend up to 3.5 trillion paying your recurrent expenditure.
And you spend about 6 trillion or thereabout on debt service.
No wonder we're in debt. And this talk has been going on for years. Cut down on the cost of governance, cut down on the cost of governance. And like someone said, I mean, government is asking us to tighten our belts. Meanwhile, his own belt is as loose as it can be.
Well, first of all, to say that that report is 2 years old, or 3, it's 2019, by that revelation by Mr. Akabueze.
Yeah.
Was done, I think, in 2019.
Yeah, 19.
So, whether or not we have added other ministries, departments, and or agencies, I don't know. You know, so that consideration has to be there for us all. And there are those who always reference your Rosario report. Merge this, merge that.
Yeah.
ICPC and EFCC, for instance, they perform what some would call functions of the police. The question is, do we still have those departments in the police that are supposed to be doing what the EFCC is doing, the ICPC is doing? Okay.
These are even agencies that we get to hear about. There are many that we didn't even know existed.
It was in the course of looking at all these reports that I knew that we had such an MDA called National or Nigeria Literary Council.
What does it do?
Literary.
Writing.
Literary. I was shocked.
There are many that don't do anything, and people just get paid salaries at the end of every month. There are many that their duties overlap, so you can merge those. So Nigeria has a huge revenue problem. We are steeped, we are covered. We're immersed in debt. And yet nobody is looking at these things critically and seeing how we can cut down on government spending.
Well,
when one governor's convoy is made up of 50 cars in a country that is shouting, we're broke, we don't have money.
It's not because nothing has been done. It's what action to be taken on what has been done. I mean, there are also a report, people quoted, I don't even know how many times if the number of times you mentioned that man's name would make the name reduce, I don't know if the name will remain. You know? So we've talked about the Rosario report for how long? And there are those who have referenced, look, merge this one, collapse this one is not functional anymore, and all those things. And we're still speaking all of these around us. So I'm just wondering whether or not indeed any government has the confidence or what do you call the political will to take action.
It's always the political will, isn't it?
And that report, that issue that you raised, also brought to my mind something. Now there are 940 something ministries, departments, and agencies. Who appoints the heads, the management, and the boards of those ministries, departments, and agencies?
Presido.
The president. So when you are going to employ a president, you are recruiting someone into all those offices. So you have to have your head screwed right, because it's a consideration we have to have. You know, it's an important consideration for us to have. You know, when whoever it is that we're going to employ, we're looking at that just one person, not knowing that there are 940-something components that make the engine of government run. And this individual is responsible for ensuring that the right pegs are put in the right holes to ensure that the engine of government runs, and we can say that president is performing.
And add the ministers.
Of course, ministries, departments, agencies.
Anyway, COVID is back. And they say that the one that is back now is a variant that is more virulent, is more infectious, it's got little or no symptoms, and it's coming out of a particular country.
Does the country exist in the world? I'm just asking. You said a particular country. We knew that the original COVID-19 came from China.
Well, this variant is also coming from China.
Oh, okay.
So
Just
what has been done or what has been said about travelers coming in from that country? I don't think our country has said anything yet.
Well, so far, what we have done is to collapse all rules around COVID-19, I always it would seem. You know, I don't know if there's this latest information now has produced any reaction from government yet. But
we know that we should be wearing our masks all over again, especially in public places and crowds and all that. In fact, I read somewhere that we should wear double mask.
Oh, really? The mask, is that the virus, is that militant?
Apparently. Apparently. So please, wash your hands. All those COVID protocols, they will have to be put in place again if you want to stay alive.
Well, I think it's important to underscore the importance of what you have to do for yourself. It's important to underscore that it's you, it's your life. And let's not just wait for COVID-19 to prioritize hygiene. It's our personal lives. It's your personal life. And loving yourself is loving the other fellow. So I think it's important to say that.
Right. So our menu for this morning, the 2023 elections, where are the voters? Where the voters
are going
that
by
is based on the
INEC data.
INEC data released in the course of the week.
While those are the voters, please go get your PVC. That's important for us to underscore, so that you will not just be a statistic, you actually be a voter indeed.
Mine is still not ready.
Oh, well, I got mine. So.
Lucky you.
Next, we'll be looking at the revised National Environmental Regulations. What does that mean? You'll come to it shortly.
Then we have Lofty Heights 2023 conference.
And lifestyle today, we're talking about traveling. The interesting thing about me concerning traveling is I love the destination. I hate the trip. I wish I could just teleport.
And then we shall close with the Artist of the Week segment as is usual on Sunrise. And all I will tell you is that he is a he.
Okay. It's time.
So thank you for joining us. Now let's get the show on the road, where the voters are. Earlier this week, the Independent Electoral Commission, INEC, released the final list of voters. And that means that this time, people have really turned out, people have registered, and people are ready to vote. I hope. INEC tells us that there are 93.4 million eligible voters. Of that, well, we'll talk about the breakdown later, how they are in terms of the regions
and states.
Yes. But to look at this with us this morning is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Suleiman Arigbabu. Executive Secretary, Header Resource Center. Good morning.
Thank you for having me.
Good to have you with us again. We also have Research Associate Professor of Political Science at the University of Lagos, Dr. Kayode Ishola. Good morning.
Good morning.
They both are with us in our studio in Lagos, and we have joining us from our studio in Abuja, Executive Director, Operation Nigeria, Ezinwa Mwagu. Good morning. Uh-oh.
Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Exactly. So, Mr. Aribabu, 93.4 million eligible voters. The Northwest has the largest figure of 22.2 million. The Southwest has 16.2 million. North Central, 13.3. Northeast, 12.5. Of course, we'll come to, other areas. What does this mean to you? 93.4 million of us have registered and all seem ready to come out and vote on election day.
I like the way you ended. They all seem ready to come out and vote because in 2019 we had 84 million, and how many of that population came out to vote? Voter apathy is still a huge problem for us. So 93 million plus. If you look at the difference between 2015 and 2019, it looks like less number of people actually joined the voting population. So that's a problem we need to understand what happened with. But yes, if you have 93 million eligible voters who have registered, though not all have collected their PVC, which is another problem, you will then expect that when we go to the poll, we should be having something close to 50%, preferably more, because we are in a democracy. But it hasn't been like that for us. The experience hasn't been like that in the last elections. We are hopeful, though, that there's been a lot of awareness about the 2023 election. There's been a lot of postulations about its importance for Nigeria. And then, of course, there's also been, let me say, hopefully, renewal of voters' confidence because of the reforms that INEC has been taking up. So we're hopeful that perhaps this will manifest in many more people coming out on the day of election. And of course, some of the things that will inform that will be the level of security going towards the election. So if people feel threatened in any way, to be your life first before the country. But yes, 93 million, let's pray that we are able to get 46 million to vote, and that would be fair for Nigeria to start from.
Doctor, your thoughts?
Well, I am perfectly in alignment with him. Having that figure does not automatically imply that such number will come and vote. Knowing fully well that people get PVCs here because of many factors. You want to open an account in the bank, you want to buy a SIM card.
So they just
I can tell you these are primary reasons the market women and all these people will get their PVCs. They use that card for many other things. So.
But Doctor, the enthusiasm with which you see young people rushing out to collect their PVCs and actually bragging that they have their PVCs and telling guys, girls telling guys who don't have PVCs to not even talk to them. Where's your PVC, man? You want to talk to me? Here's mine.
It wasn't going to be in the absolute sense. I mean, this dimension to it is also real, but it's more dramatic than real.
Okay, talking about the reality, just before we go to Mr. Mwagu in Abuja, he's speak to the regional divide, so to speak. On the one hand, the highest block of voters are in the Northwest. And I think second to that is Southwest.
Yes.
But the highest number of votes in one state is in Lagos. Second to Kano. Is that any? I mean, speaking figures. Is there something of any significance?
I think it's expected. If you go by the idea of democracy and what it is, you talk about number, you talk about perception, you talk about civilization, you talk about education. People must be educated, not going to school, I mean. They must be civilized, they must be aware before they cling into the system called democracy. So you know that the largest cities in Nigeria are Lagos and Kano. We still argue the population till tomorrow. So I am personally not surprised that those two large figures are out from these two states. It's expected, in my view.
Unfortunately, Lagos don't turn out well in the past. Let's hope things will change. The voting population, the actual voters in Lagos have been kind of abysmal. You know, compared to, it's not like Kano also get 50%.
You mean those who ultimately vote?
Ultimately vote.
On the average, for one of, I mean, INEC figures tells us that on the average, over the years, I don't know if we've ever gotten up to 40% of voters to come out.
No. None that I can remember.
So on the average, we've had 27,
30 million in the neighborhood of that.
You know, the percentage of voters over the years.
Actual voters.
And it would seem like only when the more number of voters we have, the more the percentage of voters that remain the same or drop. Two blocks particularly that I'd like you to speak with, gentlemen, and soon we'll get to Mr. Anwagu because we understand we need to deal with some things there. Number one, we heard from INEC, I think it was on this very same program, I don't know if Alan remembers, when we were having the Abuja municipal elections. The INEC spokesperson said to us that, look, as far as they know, the elites don't come out to vote in Abuja. And it would seem like it's a general thing. Then we have a median age in Nigeria of 18.1. That's the median age in Nigeria today. So we're about the youngest country in the world, it would seem. So one is wondering of what relevance is, first of all, speak to the first one, which is the quantum of elites that do not come out to vote, even though they have all the information about every single one of the voters.
Well, it's true. It's unfortunate. So the ongoing PVC collection, my organization is monitoring, observing the process, and in some states, and I can speak for Lagos here, where I've done most of my observation and part of Oyo State. And the areas where you go to, and there is a very low turnout, is where the elites are living. And then I go to some areas and people are agitated, they want their PVC, there are so many on the queue. You go to some places in Itire, in Ijesha, and they tell you, oh, since we brought it to the world, we have given out 400, 500, this morning 200 people have come to collect their PVC. And then you go to some other neighborhoods, and they have seen 20 for a whole day. So it's an elite thing, and that elite apathy needs to, well, I'm hoping again that 2023 awareness. So the elites, it's unfortunate, it's lack of, I would say, self-interest, enough of self-interest.
Anyway, we'll come back to you.
Okay.
We'll come back to you,
Mr. Mwago, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Great. Now, first of all, let me get your thoughts about 93.4 million eligible voters in Nigeria. Are you therefore expecting something like 70 million of us to turn out to vote? Because there are now 93 who are eligible? 93 million?
Well, I just think that we didn't add, what we added to the voter register will be in the neighborhood of 12 million people, 12, 13 million people thereabouts. So if that is what it is, in a population that is said to be 200 million people, and half of that will be adults, it just shows you, for instance, the attitude of people to democracy generally, and not just in Nigeria. People are questioning whether democracy works for them, or that huge debate is on even in the social sciences as we speak. But it means nothing in Nigeria. Like Mr. Ariwagu said, you've not had, and the professor, you've not had anything close to 40% turnout in any general election in Nigeria. So the excitement that we feel is palpable, but I hope it translates into people coming out to vote. And once that happens, if you get 52 this time, 60, 52, 53, 54, that'll be fine. But that 93.4% voter, registration is for me not even anything significant that we can be overtly excited about in terms of what it will mean. And I listened to you about youth turnout for voter registration and all the rest of them. The reality is that there's a lot of drama around election. Election is a festival, if you like, and people just engage in that festival. But the real business of determining who governs us is a much more serious business, and a lot of people are not yet connected to it. The PVC, I often say, is superior to the ATM. And the cost of bread, the cost of electricity, the cost of education, the cost of housing, good roads are all tied to what we do with that card. And a lot of people have not put that meaning to it. If we do, then perhaps the excitement that we feel will be real. But also underscoring that the fact that election is not compulsory in our country. People have to be persuaded. Indeed, sometimes people even have to be paid to come and exercise that citizen duty. So if they have to be persuaded, if they have to be paid, if they have to be cajoled, if they have to be, it means that they have not connected yet what it means for leadership recruitment and their well-being. And for the elites that you are talking about, is a class that's constantly subverts its own enlightened self-interest. There was an experiment that INEC did in somewhere in I think is Lekki, Ibeju Lekki or something. There was a runoff election that took place there. INEC decided that it was not going to shut down as we normally do, and it still recorded less than 5% turnout. So the analysis of the elections, all the conversations on Twitter and the rest of them, at the end of the day will mean nothing if it does not turn to reality. And for those of us who are organizers ordinarily, I remember we were having a protest in Abuja, and online, a lot of people were getting to me and saying, "Oh, we're going to be there in the morning, and you just sign me in." The online, it was buzzing and buzzing. And then on the day of the protest, I was calling some of them. They said, "Oh, sorry, I just want to get something in the office and come." At the end of the day, many of those people who were excited, wanting to be part of that protest, didn't turn up. And that is what it is for election as well.
Oh dear. Mr. Aribabu, a lot has been said about the elections of 2023, and it didn't start now. It started a few years back, and the buzz is still on.
Yes.
The importance of 2023, make or mar. Don't you think that all that would have sunk into some of our heads and would be eager to come out and have a say in who rules this country.
Yeah, it is sinking. It's just what they manifest after the sinking in. So for some of the elites, after the sinking in is to get on the next flight once the election is closed and go out of the country till the elections is over. For some of them, is seal up the house during
Some have gone already.
Some have already gone, so that's the reality. But hopefully for majority of Nigerians, the sinking in is going to manifest in them coming out to exercise that franchise because, like Mr. Wagu rightly said, the PVC is more important than, even the international passport we carry, the ATM, the PVC is more important because if you voting the wrong people, even your international passport could become useless to you. So there is a lot of buzz. And we are hopeful that this will mean that many more people will see the reason to be part of the process. We added, after the INEC cleanup, it's just about 9 million plus that has been added to the voters register. But nonetheless, it is hopeful that many more people who have either to have their PVC but didn't use it this time around will come out to use it. So let's keep hope alive.
Doc, someone said that the elites are not very interested in this exercise because most of them are their own local governments. They provide their own water, they provide their own road, they do everything. So it doesn't really matter to them who is governor or who is president because they don't feel that they have a governor. They don't feel that they have a president. They don't feel that the country is doing anything for them. So do you blame them for not showing interest?
Well, I will be subjective if I apportion blame to anybody. Election is part of political behavior, and rather than judge, explain what causes the behavior, and that's where we're going to. That position is not wrong. In fact, it is one of the narratives that we get if we go out there. But for me, much more importantly, I think the elites don't vote because, and that was insinuated by our colleagues in Abuja.
Mr. Wagu.
Yeah, Mr. Wagu, I'm sorry. Because primarily, they feel that democracy is not working for them. And that is the feeling you get across board from many of the people when you interview them. That's one. Two, the non-elites, so to say, who always, vote en masse, have probably other reasons for going out to vote on the days of election. If you are a bank manager, you sit in the comfort of your house, your wife is preparing sumptuous meal for you on the day of election, and it starts raining. You begin to ask yourself,
okay,
what am I going there to do?
Yeah.
But somebody who had been promised 15,000 naira for coming to vote, and that man is part of the wretched of the earth, whose government decides to pay 30,000 naira in 30 days. Not up to a bag of rice. So there's a clear distinction between the behavioral patterns here. One is going to vote because there is something he's going to collect from that voting. Another one is going to vote perhaps because it's just a ritual of the ballot box that he must do, as it were. Please.
On that,
okay.
My apologies. On that same issue.
Yeah.
But the elites have all the information. It's mostly the elites that all TV debates, all TV conversations with governors, with presidents, governorship candidates, presidential candidates, it's for them. So all the information is out there. In fact, a lot more money, a lot more resources are deployed to market, to educate the elites about who to vote for, who to not vote, what to expect from each of these people, than even to these other people that you talked about.
Something is technically wrong in the process. What election does is recruit your leader.
Employ, please use the word employ.
Employ your leader.
I love that word.
Now, once that leader is recruited or employed, what happens in the next 4 years? It becomes a case of atito jebolo shalowo ukubaba intiobo. That is why my
Please translate.
thinking, well, I don't know how you want to put that
It's
in
like you already
OJ.
put the ring on someone's finger.
Yeah.
You remember who go come out.
Yeah, put it in that language. So the perception is now you recruit the president is there, the governor is there. In the next 4 years, you don't have the structure to check
to sack them.
what that person is doing. For the elites to participate, the society, and I'm happy we are discussing this, especially in the presence of the civil society organizations who are mobilizing people. Election is a three-leg thing when it comes to democracy. It's like coming to the university. You must sit your general exams to have your WAEC certificate or NECO. You must take JAMB. Then when you get to the university must ensure that the purpose of giving you that admission is achieved by giving you tests and exams every time. And the third leg is that if peradventure you do not do what you are supposed to do, you get expelled or rusticated. That is how every system works. Now, if you come back to election, what we do in Nigeria is just go and get PVC and vote and go to sleep. The other two legs, we don't do them. And there are structures for us to be doing them. We don't follow the structures. There is the National Complaints Commission. There is the National Orientation Commission. So to the extent that once you recruit a leader as governor, the 4 years mandate is certain. But if you adopt a pattern in which from the first policy statement, just a statement, and you make a statement and that statement does not go well with those who vote for you, they go to the street and insist, this must change.
It's like
if we do that culture, if we adopt that culture, then people will have
It sounds
confidence.
like you are asking us to go back to the parliamentary era because it would seem like that's
where that's most
because it would seem like that's where that's
most practicable.
But Doc, I am. Do you not see any signs of us becoming more educated
politically
and understanding what you're talking about?
Well, maybe this is, again, I said, this is where we need to give ourselves the reorientation. The summary of what I've just said, if you take it, is that what voting does for you is to get the leader into the office. But election goes beyond voting. Unlike production is not complete until the goods get to the consumer. Election is not complete until you ensure that those who you voted in are monitored to do what they are supposed to do, and if they do not do it, then you revert. How do we get our society into this behavioral pattern?
As you said, we have the structures for that.
Civil society,
they're here, so the two of them.
they should help us.
Let me,
I think that's the missing link.
Mr. Wagu, so you heard him, and I believe that you have a thing or two to say about that. How we get to not only put people to the jobs, but to ensure that they get the jobs done. But before we go there, if you don't mind, I'd like you to kind of speak to us about the various divisions of political education that we ought to have. In the demographies, concerning these voters, where the voters are, there are students, there are artisans, there are businessmen and women, there are farmers, there are traders, there are all kinds of people. There are bankers, accountants, engineers, all of them within this basket of 93.4 million, which, by the way, the previous voter register had about 84 point something, about 84 million, and now we have 93 plus. That sounds like something in the region of a little over 9 million people have been added to the voting block. So in all of these baskets of 93.4 million that INEC says we have in the kitty, what would you say, how should we be speaking to the various publics in this larger public? Should it be a generic conversation? Because unless we speak to the people where the voters are and how we can communicate with them, not just inform them, communicate with them, educate them, enlighten them, we're going to have the same results.
Well, I think first that there is a challenge of ignorance. There is another challenge of mischief. And that one is trying to wake up somebody who is sleeping. The person knows, but just doesn't want to do anything about that. So many times we insult the sensibility of our people that they do not know, or they are not educated enough, and that pride sometimes also comes to us. The reverse of that for me will be to say, is it possible that what we call campaigns now, which is more of razzmatazz, rituals, town halls that are, if you like, already predetermined. Is it possible that we have Nigerian Medical Association, Nigerian Association of Midwives and Nurses and Midwives, physiotherapists, and the rest of the people who work in the health sector, who have an understanding of the challenge of the country in the health sector, organize and invite, not they being invited, not somebody talking to them, people who will get into government tomorrow and start telling you that they didn't know that the rot, how deep the rot is. As soon as you elect them in, the first thing they tell you is, oh, sorry, we didn't know the rot was this deep. Can you call the folks who have an understanding of the challenges in the education sector, in the health sector, in the transport sector, organizing their own? I thought that was the value that we get from the long period of campaign, 5 months period of campaign that we have. But that opportunity is being missed. We have gone back to people going to Kaduna, Jos, and hiring stadiums of the same people. You go to people's houses, they have APC t-shirts, they have PDP t-shirts, they have NNPP t-shirts, they have Labour Party t-shirts in one house, meaning that it is the same people attending these rallies where nothing is said: music, dance, and drama. So if we continue the pattern that we're going, we will continue to have the same results.
Well, Mr. Nwagu, it speaks to the question that I asked. Just one second. Just 1 second, Mr. Nwagu. It speaks to the challenge of the question that I raised. Now, it's not that Nigerians are not educated or all of that. I'm asking actually about political education. You heard Dr. Ishola here say that, people just go and, vote, but election is a lot more than that. Election is a lot more than just voting. So it's that political education that I was asking about, because if people knew about these issues that you raised, I don't think that they will still just go for the drama and say, all I came here to do is what?
Well, I heard you clearly. I'm building up to the point where I'll get to the question that you asked. There's a lot that has gone on after elections. A lot of civil society organizations, the media, there are a lot of engagements that go on in terms of citizen mobilization to hold government accountable. First and foremost, the issue of budgets. I guess that a lot of people who live in Lagos Island, who live in in Amak, for instance, do not know that you can't spend money in those local governments without a budget. And what is a budget? Budget is a document that details what government, whichever government, intends to do for you with your own resources. The government does not create money, it does not invent anything. It either taxes you or collects fines and all levies and all kinds of things that culminate into the resources. And it is that resources that they now say, look, in 1 year we are going to build 2 schools, we are going to build primary health care. It is entailed in a document. The illiteracy of the elite is that they don't care about that document. They don't go for it. They don't want to interrogate it. And so you can find that things roll back from 2018, 2019, and it's not the fault of those who hold those documents, because if you don't make a demand, there will not be supply. That's number one. When government wants to construct a road, it puts a board detailing the contractor, detailing the duration of the road, detailing the company that is going to handle that road, and sometimes with their phone number. Then they say duration is 2018. By 2022, the road is not completed. People who live in that environment, who ply that road, will not ever call that number and say, what is the reason why this road is not completed? So there is a citizen liturgy in terms of wanting to be educated to do the responsibility that is already provided for by even the system that they are supposed to oversight. So civil society is working intensely around budget tracking, budget implementation, and all of those things. And that is the relationship that government has with citizens.
Okay.
Is budget.
Okay.
So if we don't interrogate the budget as elites, not just for the ordinary people, then what is the challenge? In many places where we have gone to have this conversation, they say, oh, the government, they have soldiers, they have police, you can't come close to them. And I said, when it comes to public good, we always hoist regime of excuses. If you were looking for a letter from a local government chairman for your son to join the army, you will find him wherever he is.
Exactly.
But
well, Mr. Wagu,
get the document. Get the document that is the relationship between you and these people. We are laid back in that, and nobody is going to be blamed for that.
Well, at the end of the day, we're going to have to blame ourselves.
It's not funded enough.
Absolutely. We're going to have to blame ourselves if we don't do the right things right. Mr. Ribabu, I can't take my eyes away from the breakdowns, for instance. There are those who would point to, various segments of the society, students, artisans, and all those things, who are part of this whole, election process and all. And so one is wondering whether or not we are carrying them along. We have told them to go get their PVCs, and a sizable number have gone out to do that. For instance, by age groups between ages 18 and 34, there are 33.4 million voters. That's about 35.75% of all who are. Okay, no, that's 39 actually. Yeah. Distribution by age groups shows that 37 million, that's about 39.65%, are youths between ages 18 and 34. Next to that are middle-aged persons between 35 and 49. We asked them to go get their PVCs. Yeah. They have gotten their PVCs. As Dr. Ishola said, we've told them to vote. They have gotten the visas to vote. What next?
First, they should vote. That's the way to start from. They should select properly based on the things that affect their lives, and then they should vote. And then we can then take it further that after you have voted, do you just leave those who come into power, or do you have a way to hold them accountable?
And that's where the education telling them really is. That now?
That is part of the conversation now. But of course, like Mr. Wagu said, election has its razzmatazz and its carnival-like nature. So now everybody is for one candidate or the other. The voice of civil society is already even drowned, as it were, trying to tell people that beyond all of this partisan interest, it is about what should come after the elections. So it's not just that people promise you heaven and earth. It's about, will they be able to do these things? Are they fully aware of what it is that they are going into? So that conversation will continue right after the election. We need to start then to hold political office holders accountable. And this is where the elite is lacking, because the elite has the powers to do it. I would expect that beyond strike and what have you, professional associations, NMA, ASU, what have you, can take either parliaments or ministers or duty bearers to court on certain things they failed to do.
The Serap does that.
So we need a lot more of that. Okay, so see, for instance, every National Assembly comes in and starts this jamboree of reviewing the Constitution. They devote billions of naira to it. It's not even so much about the money, but our time and hope that they waste. This National Assembly now is giving us excuses why it may not conclude the constitutional reform that they set up, and this happens recurrently.
So
we need to start now taking action, taking people to
people. Now, Dr. Shola, we started, Alera and I started this morning by looking at the number of ministries, departments, and agencies. You may not have caught that. And my position has always been, when you elect the president, sorry, let me use that word again. When you employ the president, you are employing him into, according to Mr. Ben Akwabueze's analysis, 943 ministries, departments, and agencies. So one office has 943, minimum 943 ministries, departments, and agencies as of 2 years ago. And added to that, 541 corporations, all owned by the federal government. In educating people where the voters are about whom to vote for, do you think when people are voting, they have this consideration?
I'm afraid no. That's our experience in Nigeria at present. I'm afraid no, they do not have. And that goes back to that very important question. After getting PVC, what next? You know, he said it. They must vote. I agree. They must vote. But again, added to that, while voting, what are the questions permeating your mind? Am I voting because it is the turn of my clan? Or I am voting because this political party has not been given the opportunity for the last 5 years, so it is the turn? Or I am voting because I put all yardsticks together and I have arrived at the conclusion that this is the man who has the capacity to run the affairs of my nation. If we go back to voters' behavior, I mean, in terms of psephology, what you see is that majority of our people who have PVCs now, and we are celebrating, are going to vote either because I am Yoruba, Igbo, or Hausa. I'm going to vote whether because Emiloko or is not the other one that's gone, or simply because they gave me money and it has been so nice. I mean, a politician came out to the public and said, I have served all of, I've been so nice to you, I put you in power. This is a payback time. If you go to the polling booth with your PVC, with the psychology of, oh, he's been nice to my uncle, he paid my daughter's school fees, therefore this is time to vote for him, it's a waste. So we must, again, like he said, we've been doing it, but we need to now know that this is where the work is. It is not enough to get PVC and celebrate the number. We have grown from 80 to 95. If we don't vote correctly for the right reason, it is what Fela called perambulation. We merely be perambulating. So we've been doing it at the level of civil society. We must commend them. But that is the real work. In fact, to me, if you have 15 million Nigerians who vote, and they vote wisely, I think it's better than having 100 million Nigerians who vote, but vote for the wrong reason. You know? That's the way I see it.
You want to?
Go ahead.
But Mr. Wangu, I'll take you back to that same question that I asked Dr. Ishola now. 943 ministries, departments, and agencies, 541 corporations, all owned by the federal government. And no, we'll come back to it with you. And, you know, that is the person, one vote, one election, one vote employs more than 1,000 people into various offices all across the Federation for the president. For governors, something similar, maybe 500 MDAs at their various levels and corporations of the states. How do we communicate this reality to the people? Because political exigencies may not provide the dividends of democracy, of the jobs we employ people to do to them, if it's based on sentiments of alignment or affiliations as opposed to the realities that need to be confronted.
So you were talking about where the votes were. The votes from what has just been released, is the bulk of it is in the Northwest and the North Central. But you look at the statistics of how well the people in those regions where you have the bulk of the votes are, it does not reflect in their voting strength. Having said that, hunger, poverty does not have tribal marks. That then means that this president, this governor, working with the National Assembly that employs, using your language, that employs these DGs, ministers, heads of parastatals, service the elite. They service the elite. Because when we say, oh, many of them they become their own local governments, all of these MDAs that you refer to thrive on procurement and contracts. And who are those who do the contracts? As we speak today, government is no longer providing houses for the poor. But estates are mushrooming all over the country. Government is no longer funding public hospitals, but private universities, elite private hospitals are mushrooming all over the country. And the ones that were publicly built have been outsourced to the same private sector that the elite constitutes. So when I said that the elite not voting is a subversion of their own enlightened self-interest, it's because they are the ones who benefit, really. The ordinary people do not benefit. So whether it's in the Northwest or even in Lagos, with all those phenomenal number of voters that you have, what is the life of the ordinary Lagosian? How is it different from the ordinary Nigerian who lives in Mbise, my hometown? So the challenge for me is that the philosophy, the ideology of the elite is to continue to undermine those things that ennoble us as a people. And that is the challenge that 2023 that we have to put on the front burner. That at the end of the day, in the last 40 years, the ideology of government has been one in which the ordinary people have not been put in the center stage. And so whether it's a PDP or APC or Labour Party, you just have to look at what are they thinking right now. What is the thought? So the votes are in Northwest, they are the demography is about young people, old, and the rest of them. How has this system served the enlightened self-interest of all these demographics? Okay. So we need to challenge, first and foremost, the idea of government. What is this government supposed to be doing for us? Our chapter 2 is very clear what it should do. And if every other government that comes takes from that chapter 2 to make health free for all, to make education free and compulsory, and provide houses for the poor, electricity, drugs in our hospitals, it will not come to where are you from. Where are you from is not important. If I'm sick and I go to the hospital, I don't ask the doctor whether he's from Northwest or from Southwest. I don't ask him. I want to be treated. And so for me, therefore, is to say that the conversation about where the votes come from or where it doesn't come from, as important as it is, every vote in a democracy is important. Whether it's coming from the less populated areas or from the bigger populated areas, what is important is this government that we're going to be employing, what will it do? The 946 MDAs that you talk about, who do they service? Who do they work for? What do they do? And in whose interest do they exist?
The questions are endless, Mr. Wago. So let's take some last words now. Mr. Aribabu, how do we close?
Well, I think we're expecting a miracle, and I don't think a miracle will happen. I think that building Nigeria is still a long journey that we are on. I do not believe so much in the presidential system that we run. Let me put that on the table. I think Nigeria will do better if we go back to the parliamentary system. Now, most of the change that we require, we usually focus on the presidency, on the governors. They come and they say my social contract. The real people we should be having social contract with, the real people we should be having agenda for, are those gentlemen and ladies who are going to the state houses of assembly, the federal house of representatives, and the senate, because that is where the real change can happen. That is where we can change things that will significantly impact on who becomes the DG of this, who becomes the minister of this.
Interestingly,
if we don't control that area, we'll keep hoping for a miracle that is a long way from coming.
It's interesting that you didn't talk about local government.
I think I like the declaration that we are expecting a miracle. Nigerians are expecting a miracle. But I can tell you, from what we have on ground now, across the political parties and their candidates, there will never be any miracle. Therefore, we are
in spite of the fact that we are a praying nation.
we must pray and speak in tongues. And that's why our roads are good, our airports are fit. Keep praying, it's good for you. So, that miracle is not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
Unfortunately, and this is sad, we are losing it again in 2023. It's clear, apparent. But that is not the end of the road. If we take into cognizance my declaration that eternal vigilance is the guarantee of freedom, and democracy is about freedom. Too bad we're going to lose it into 2023. But whoever comes in, let's wait.
Let's not go to the too bad part.
Let's wait.
Mr. Wago.
Well, I think that we should make 2023 a people-centered election. The only way we can do that is to re-engineer the conversation with the little time that we have. And thankful to Channels TV and a lot of other partners that are already centralizing the issue that concerns the people. Otherwise, we're just going to have elections. But elections in itself is a means, it's not the end. The end is about the how we improve the lives and conditions of our people. We will pray very, very hard. We are already praying. Many people are already in the beginning of this year are praying. But I do know that countries that are doing very well are run sometimes even by people who don't believe in God. So hard work.
So we must keep praying.
Pray and they eventually give us the results that we're looking for. And that hard work will only come by you coming out to vote, by you prioritizing the PVC and understand the value that it gives in the leadership employment process that is going to be coming up in 2023. And I wish us a beautiful election in 2023.
Mr. Ezenwa Wago, Executive Director, Operation Nigeria, who joined us from our studio in Abuja.
Chairman, Partners for Electoral Reform. I don't know where that come from.
Oh, okay.
Partner for Electoral Reforms. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ezenwa. And we had with us in our studio in Lagos, Mr. Sulaiman Arigbabu, Executive Secretary, Header Resource Center, and Dr. Kayode Shola,
Executive Research
of Political Science. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming to share your insights with us this morning.
Thank you.
Sunrise will be right back with another interesting conversation. Do stay with us.
You're going to have to look for that video yourself. I want people to call.
Brother Shaggy.
With $1 billion
at stake.
Brother Shaggy.
Yes.
It's okay. Anyway.
He managed to get the question right.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes.
I'll find out later. Because I'm really curious. Next, of course, we want to talk about the revised National Environmental Regulations for Nigeria. In September last year, the federal government gazetted the National Environmental, Electrical and Electronic Sector Regulations. The principal thrust of this regulation is to prevent and minimize pollution from all operations and ancillary services of the electrical electronic sector. You know them, your so-called electrical and rewire.
Computer.
Yeah. So the regulation covers both new and used electronic equipment, and it's also anchored on the 5 R's: reduce, repair, reuse, recover, and recycle as the primary drivers of the sector. There's a lot to unpack on that, and let's have this conversation with two ladies with us this morning. Ibukun Faloye is e-waste producer responsibility of Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
As well as Ezenwanye Udechukwu, Head Port Operations, Lagos Liaison Office of Nesria. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Be it known unto thee that some people are hearing about Nesria for the first time. So, tell us about Nesria.
NESRA is a short for the National Environmental Standards and Regulations Enforcement Agency. It's a parastatal of the Federal Ministry of Environment. It came into establishment in 2007 by the NESRA Establishment Act, which was amended recently. The main mandate of the agency is to protect the environment and to enforce all regulations, all environmental regulations, conventions to which Nigeria is signatory to, all policies, agreements, protocols, and laws of national or international nature. Well, all laws are national, to which is of the environmental sector, environment.
Well, you know, okay, so there is the environment, and then there is this Nesria Act that you talked about. But there are those who are wondering, how do we know that we have been feeling the impact of Nesria around? What does Nesria do in the various localities that affect people directly or indirectly?
Nesria has done a number of activities which has impacted on the Nigerian environment. Firstly, there are about 35 or 36 regulations now that are on the environment, national environmental regulations on different sectors, which the agency has gazetted and which are operational at the moment. These regulations cut across different sectors, as I've said. They include manufacturing sector, sanitation issues, and a number of other activities. And operationalization has started, and a number of people have felt the impact. There are a number of sensitizations and a number on our activities on how people must carry about their businesses. We at the port, we do a number of things. We have make sure that items that will affect the Nigerian environment are not brought into the country. We have repatriated a number of e-waste, and make sure that people that bring in e-waste are brought to books. We have set up processes, for example, the Extended Producer Responsibility Program, which brought EPRON on board. And the main thrust of this program is to ensure that electrical and electronic items at end of life is being managed properly.
Okay, well, Madam, let me come to you, because it seems like she's speaking a lot of good English. And others who are wondering, okay, so how does this affect me directly? A number of people are watching now. So many others will watch after this program is over on YouTube. So they'll be wondering, okay, so maybe we should begin by asking, what's your own play in this national environmental regulations?
Okay, so I'm sure during the course of reviewing the regulations, you'll have seen the case of saying producer responsibility organizations. Now, a producer responsibility organization is an organization that's set up by producers to be custodians or to do like some form of stewardship for whatever they're bringing into the market. So it's about ensuring you take responsibility for your products from the point of sales till the end of life of the product. And that's what brought about EPRON. So EPRON is E-Waste Producers Responsibility Organization of Nigeria, set up by manufacturers and distributors of electrical and electronic equipment in Nigeria. So currently there are about 35 registered members for this year that have come to that we've increased over the years. It was much less. We started out with just 2 organizations being on the board, MTN and HP, but since 2019, more organizations have come on board, and we are all sitting together to ensure that we take responsibility as specified in that regulation.
Okay, now how does that affect people generally? Because it's not Apron, for instance, that use this equipment.
Yeah.
And secondly, when people buy the equipment, they bought it, they're done with it, they want to get rid of it. Unless you are speaking about organizations that get these equipment in bulks of 10, 20, 500 in some cases. How does Apron help to mop up, if that's what you're saying, this equipment?
Yeah, so basically, we started with a very good pilot in Lagos State. Set up about 34 collection centers already. The approach is the model that the Nigerian approved model is that Apron will not mop up directly, but you work with registered collectors and take back centers to take these things off the people, and then we transfer them to the recyclers that we handle them in an environmentally sound manner. So the responsibility of people is to comply to those take-back arrangements, like taking those things back. Sometime last year, we piloted another approach, which is what we call the Small We Matters project. And basically, we worked with a store called Slots to put up small collection boxes for smaller items like your gadgets, your phones, and all of that. So you take back to those stores, and then they took to the collectors, and then the collectors took to the recyclers. So that's the responsibility of the consumer, whether you're using one or you're using bulk, to know where the collection centers are. Why we give them information in their own different areas, and then they take back. So we don't put them in the dustbin because they are not municipal solid waste and they don't belong there.
Except you're telling me that when we throw our dead phones in the trash, those who are collecting the trash take them out and take them somewhere for collection. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's
because
not
I would normally just, okay, my phone is dead, it can't be fixed anymore. I just throw it in my trash.
Yeah, because that's what a lot of people do, which shouldn't be, because they're a special kind of waste. They have no place in that trash. They contain a lot of hazardous substances.
They haven't been told.
Okay.
Exactly.
They haven't been told.
People don't know.
Okay.
Which we're glad at least you can tell.
You're
people
telling us now.
If you have dead phones, don't just put them in the trash.
Okay.
So
dead iPads and stuff.
Yeah.
Perhaps a good place to start then would be for people to even know what the risks are. She says there are some hazardous things, but you want to perhaps take it from there. In these equipment, my earpiece is bad. I don't want it anymore. I throw it in the dustbin. My the phone has a bad battery. I don't want to use it anymore. I throw it in the trash, and all those things. That's what people do. At the point of purchase, no one told them when your phone is bad.
Yeah.
Bring it to us.
Yeah.
Yes, that is even why we had to review the regulations, because people handle hazardous waste carelessly. You see in our homes, our energy-saving bulbs that contain a lot of hazardous chemicals. We handle them carelessly, and in the process, bulbs can break, exposing people to hazardous chemicals.
So please, back up. So, just to be clear, people use energy-saving bulbs for good reason.
Yes.
It's what's that? A prepaid meter. So the less
Energy efficiency.
energy consuming bulb I use, the better for me.
Yes.
So what's the hazard there?
The hazard is with that bulb is at end of life.
Okay, when it's done,
Yes.
when it's bad.
Yes, at end of life. So the regulation now has made it mandatory for people that produce this item, and in the regulation, a producer is described not just as the original equipment manufacturer. It also means somebody that is his representative, the importer, the dealer, the assembler. Anybody that is representing the manufacturer is a producer. So in this regulation, the producer has been made to bear responsibility for managing that product at end of life. Because when you bought a bulb, you bought it with the intent of saving your energy, which is still good for the environment. So when you finish using it, it has served the purpose for which you have bought it.
No, when it blows, when it's not working anymore.
Yes,
That's when,
yes, that is at end of life.
You cannot retire on me unless it has.
Okay, at end of life, you have paid for what you bought. So it is the responsibility of the producer to ensure that this item does not constitute nuisance or hazard to the environment.
How does it do that?
Now we've taken it up to make, we're having consultative meetings with a number of them.
Speak to, how does that dead bulb, how does it constitute a hazard to me, the user?
If, for example, in the course of handling it, you throw it about or you toss it about and that item gets broken, there are a number of chemicals which shouldn't have been released into the environment and which could also be hazardous to both you and people around you.
Ezinwanyi, I can tell you for free that when you buy, for instance, an energy-saving bulb,
Easy bulb.
the guy who is selling it doesn't tell me what to do.
That's it, the guy knows.
When at the expiration of the life of that bulb.
Yes.
He doesn't know, so he doesn't pass that information on to the buyer. So you're telling us now, but we didn't know this. What should we do with our expired bulbs or telephone batteries?
Yes. The first thing is take it to a collection center. We have a number of these registered collection centers. In fact, the regulation has
How do we find out where they are?
EPRON is here.
Okay.
Because there are a list of collection centers.
Us shortly.
But the guy that sold the battery to you did not tell you because he himself does not know. So if the person, the dealer, if we now make it mandatory for him to set up a process to retrieve these items back, it will not be voluntary again. It will be mandatory. And because this regulation has been gazetted, we can now enforce it.
So Computer Village, here you come to go and educate all of them in Computer Village.
Yes,
to tell us when they are selling products to us, what we should do with them at the end of those products' lives, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
Madam, you will tell us all the things that she said, but first of all, list to us. You've told us some. Those things that come under this e-waste producer responsibility, thing that you're talking about. What are these products? You've told us about the phones or digital equipment. You've told us about energy-saving bulbs. Which other ones?
Yeah, it's not just energy-saving bulbs. I can see a lot of them here.
No, these ones are not dead.
They will eventually get to their end of life. Refrigerators, ATM machines, you know about the telephones, you know about the x-ray machines in hospitals.
So if my fridge is not working anymore,
yes,
I should call you.
Yes, you should call the collection center. You can call me.
We just throw them out on the side of the road.
Which shouldn't be, because when you look into those fridges, by the time they get to the end of life, they have like some refrigerants there that can escape into the environment.
What are the implications of those things getting into the human body?
A lot of them are carcinogenic.
Okay.
Yeah, some are carcinogenic, some are endocrine depleting substances. So, for instance,
please speak English.
Yeah, let me say it. Let me break it down. Let me take a very good example. Let me take your tablet device or your laptop. You find out that if you plug your laptop for hours, it doesn't catch fire, even though it's hot. Now it's been insulated with some sort of plastics that we have what we call brominated flame retardants. So it will make it catch fire. Now those brominated flame retardants are substances that is doing a good job there, not letting it catch fire, but they are endocrine depleting substances for people when they get into the body. They stay in the fatty tissues and cause a lot of damage for human infertility and all those kind of things. So it means that those substances cannot just be in the
Thrown
environment.
around anyway.
environment.
Yeah, it will leach. It finds its way to the dump sites, which is what we have in Nigeria, and then the leach has other substances, and those go into underground water for us. It goes into surface water. It goes into the food that we eat because it's on the soil that the plants we take up as nutrients, and then we invariably go back eating those things. And then even when it goes into the water, that's what the fishes, where they dwell. So it deposits.
And we still eat the fish.
And we eat the fish. So basically, this is a time I'm happy we need to create a lot of awareness about these things and let people know the implications of just doing these things continuing in the usual manner. We can't do that. No business as usual scenario. We have to change now to put it using formalized channels of taking them to the collection centers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Your organization, I assume, is responsible for creating awareness for all this.
Absolutely.
Yeah? And like I said to her, Computer Village, here we come. How well is your awareness drive going? Because from this explanation you just given, this is a very important issue because it affects our lives.
Absolutely.
If we eat plants that have grown in those places, we are going to die slowly. If we drink water that has been contaminated by things that have been thrown into them, we are dying slowly. So how well is your awareness going to make those who sell these things aware so that they can tell us, the buyers?
Okay, so realistically, there's a lot of improvement that we need to do on the part of our awareness. And essentially what has been deterring us is the fact that a lot of producers have not come on board. The responsibility of the organization is to use producers' funds, collectively, to raise awareness, collectively, to do the collection and do the recycling. But we've had it in such a way that producers have refused to come on board, essentially because there's nothing making it mandatory. But now with the Gazette? Now with the Gazette, this is a very recent development. With these Gazettes now, then there's nowhere for anyone to hide. And then it has defined the penalties and it has made it mandatory for all producers to come on board and join, and then we can actually achieve this purpose or this aim, which is the aim of the organization, to implement the EPL and then ensure environmentally sound management of electronic waste in Nigeria.
Now, this goes back, Mrs. Udechukwu, to what you were saying the other time. Nigeria hasn't, I don't know, to the best of my knowledge, really started producing these mobile phones and technology gadgets, fridges, and the rest of it. So that means that they are all imported, right?
Mostly, yeah.
We assemble,
Yes.
but we do not produce.
We do not manufacture.
We do not manufacture.
Yeah.
All the things that are going to be assembled, they come from wherever else. Is there a way to check how these things come in? You were trying to talk about port operations the other time. How do we check the standards for this equipment to ensure that the right quality, the right values come in, and we can save lives even before we know we're doing that?
Okay, yeah. For new equipment that come into Nigeria, the Standard Organizations of Nigeria has standards for all those. And they also work with EPRON on that to ensure that people that bring in new items register under this EPR program. For used items, there is also standards for items that come in. The standard is important so that items that are not waste, that's we call it waste electronic items, or near end of life items, or items that they bring in because they want to use it to repair another thing. Categorically non-functional items do not come in. So there are standards for all those.
Okay. How about these others that are carcinogenic and all those other English words that she used?
Every item, all electronics, whether new or used, they all have chemicals that affect the environment. So what is important is safe management of these items in a sustainable manner at end of life.
So educate the viewer now. Who is using a phone? Whether now or towards end of life. In fact, some people don't want their phones to die because they can't afford to get another one. There is a hypothesis in my head about the lifespan of a phone. Is there a lifespan? Let me even ask you, is there a lifespan for any of these equipment?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
The manufacturers will have warranty and they will know how long it will last. If you buy a laptop, no matter how well you use it, you can't expect to use the laptop indefinitely.
Okay.
It will definitely come to end of life.
Like so 3 years, 4 years?
Yes, whether you manage it, you can manage your laptop to 10 years. That is your business, depending on how you use it. In fact, one of the 5 R's you would have seen is to repair. We try to encourage people to reuse, to repair, so as to reduce the volume of waste in our environment. So if we can repair things that are within, not bringing in bad things because we want to repair them, no, those ones are already non-functional. Don't bring in non-functional items. We encourage repair. You can reuse things that you're not using, you can give it out to other people, charities, schools, people that cannot afford it. Try to repair to reduce the amount of waste that go into the environment. But by the time the thing comes to an end of life that they cannot be used, don't give them to scavengers. Because scavengers, all these people that move about, don't give it to scavengers, even though we are trying to also formalize the activities because they are important stakeholders in the value chain.
In the collection value chain.
Yes, the important stakeholders. We also try to train them, to tell them, don't dismantle these items yourself, because by dismantling them, they expose themselves to hazards.
Okay. Now, in parentheses, all those desktops that were used in those days have been discarded because new models have come out, more fashionable models. What would you say happened to all those first generation desktops?
To tell you the truth, e-waste business is good business when it is done the right way. In fact, Madam will tell you, it is called urban mining. In fact, it is estimated that the value of gold in 1 ton of computer is more than, like laptops and other accessories, ICT materials, is more than what you get in 1 ton of gold ore. So that is
Madam,
to tell
can you
you.
please explain that? What do you do with this discarded stuff?
Okay, so essentially she's telling you that in mining used
Electronic.
end of life electronic equipment, there's potential for resource recovery from it, and then it can be used to make other products. So there's a business side, there's a treatment side in the aspect of the recycling. We talked about the hazardous substances, and in it there are also valuable substances that the recyclers harvest and put back into use to do a lot of other things. Yeah. So it's
So
a business.
even though they're called e-waste,
they
can actually charge you some money for them, right?
No, there's an incentive that is supposed to be paid for every e-waste that you take back. Different categories of e-waste has its own incentive value.
So those people whose televisions, old TV sets, were purchased in 1985, and they are still managing it.
Barely showing.
Once they hit it on one side, the color.
I'm sure there's nobody using that kind of TV anymore.
So I'm guessing that includes old TV sets, old music equipment, and all of those things in the houses and all.
Yeah.
Now, how do we begin the process of educating people about this? Because most of the people that have this equipment, they are not watching TV right now. They may never see this conversation that we're having. So just as she asked you about, the educating, the education part of it. What has your experience been in terms of giving people first-hand information about this equipment, and what has been the feedback?
Okay, so one thing I've seen is that surprisingly, a lot of people, a number of people know about e-waste, but a lot of people do not even know. They've not even heard the word e-waste before, because sometimes we did some vox pop to see the level of awareness, and people are like, what does that mean? And surprisingly, you hear that from students who went to university, and a lot of people, if people in university don't know what e-waste is, so you know that the knowledge gap is quite wide. But the awareness has to be different approaches. One size cannot do it all, because like you mentioned, some people are not watching us right now. Some people will see later on YouTube. So we right now we focus a lot on social media, because that's what's more affordable for us,
Yes,
given the current situation of the organization. But once we get fully funded, we have a very good communication strategy that we hope to deploy across the country, and we hope to expand our collection centers this year to a minimum of 8 states collection centers. And
how many do you have at the moment?
At the moment, it's just Lagos, one collection in Abuja, center in Abuja, and one in Port Harcourt.
Okay, so those in Lagos, where is the collection center?
There are different places. We have in Computer Village, we have in
How
Sule.
can people get information about that?
Okay, so they can go to any of our social media, and we also have it on our website.
What's the name?
www.epron.org.ng.
Epron is EPRON.ng.
.org.ng.
.org.ng. EPRON.org.ng.
Yes. Then you can also find them on our Instagram pages, our LinkedIn pages, Epron NG, both of them, and then you can see a list of the collection centers in Lagos out there.
One could go on and on about this, because I was going to ask you, so let me just ask you that, let me see if it is possible. You've talked about the hazards of this whole thing to people. So I'm just wondering, from where you see it, how do people receive this information about the hazards when you give it to them?
Some, they take it that
something will kill somebody.
Yes, that kind of idea, that kind of thing.
That's not business.
But a number of them, that particularly those that are involved in dismantling, some will say, yes, we have experienced so and so. Could it be the cause? We said yes.
Well, this is a call for every one of us to pay attention to this, because if you suddenly are having some symptoms that you're wondering where they are from, what if it's your e-waste? I don't know, I'm just saying, because it would seem like the more technology improves, the riskier, it gets to use this equipment. We have to thank you very much for being here this morning. Ezinwanye Udechukwu, Head Port Operations, Lagos Liaison Office of Nigeria. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sir.
As well as the iron merchant, she called you there. Ibukun Faloyi, e-waste producer, responsibility of Nigeria. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you for staying with us. Now let's talk about a conference that's coming up, which, it's supposed to be an annual event, but, COVID affected a lot of things, including this particular event. But we're glad to welcome the convener of Lofty Heights Conference, Mr. Wale Tejumade.
Thank you so much, Auntie Eller. Such a joy to be back here.
Thank you.
After 2 years I had us. And pleasure meeting you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Mr. Tejumade.
So Lofty Heights Conference, LHC, is an event gathering young professionals across Nigeria and other African countries together to provide a lot of mind-provoking inspiration. Well, Wale Tejumade will tell us more about it, because one is going to hold very soon in Lagos. So tell us about the Lofty Heights Conference.
I'd say thank you yet again for the opportunity of being here, and for Channels being a media sponsor, for this conference. The Lofty Heights Conference is it's like a meeting point, between achievers and would-be achievers, mentors, and prodigies. It's an inspirational platform where skilled, experienced, successful, people come together, to inspire young adults and young professionals. And this conference is an annual conference, like you rightly mentioned earlier on. But unfortunately, due to COVID, in the past, I think the last edition we had was actually in the year 2020, January of 2020. But this coming Saturday, the 21st of January 2023, there will be yet another edition, and that edition is themed self-leadership.
Self-leadership?
Yeah, self-leadership.
Okay. What kind of topics are you going to be dealing with?
The discussion for the day is going to be centered around, the theme itself. Self-leadership, basically, the intention is to letting people understand they need, to take in responsibility for their own lives. So simply put, we're simply saying, for the attendees, go lead yourself. Take, for example, when God created heaven and earth, there was something he did for man. He gave man dominion. He gave man authority, he gave man charge, over everything that he had created. Now, it becomes the man's responsibility to beginning to also lead in himself, to the actualization of the things that God has in store, for him or for her. As it were, you find many young adults, young professionals these days who are very skilled, at, passing the buck or, giving excuses as to why, they plateaued, or as to why they could not achieve certain things. They blame all sorts of people. They blame the parents, blame their uncles, their aunts, one aunt in the village, blame the government, you blame everything, you blame everyone. I think that time has come where everyone needs just to rise up, and take the bull by the horns, and begin to lead in themselves. And the speakers, we have 7 of them, would be sharing with us about, these are people who have proven experiences and proven results as to how they've been able to lead themselves in spite and despite of their challenges, of their backgrounds, and whatever thing, life has thrown at them.
My apologies, Alero. It's interesting that you're asking young adults to lead themselves.
Yeah.
And I would really love to know who these speakers are, and I'm sure a good number of people will want to know as well, because asking someone who is hungry, jobless, hopeless, to go lead himself, you have a hard job on your hands. Or rather, you gave yourself a tough task, ahead of you. So maybe I should ask you, what's been the reaction of young people when you tell them about this thing? You're not telling them how to make money, you're telling them how to lead themselves.
You see,
what's this man talking about?
Very interesting question. And you see, the truth is that young man would never be able to make a headway out of life until he gets to that level where he chooses to take responsibility for his own life and his own destiny. So you can't, saunter your way out of poverty, out of lack, out of joblessness, out of whatever challenges, that you may be grappling with right now, without, the consciousness or the decision to saying, at this point, I need to just rise up, and just end up leading myself. However, before there can be an effective self-leadership, there must be self-awareness. So when the person becomes aware of who they really are and what potentials, lie in them or what they're able to achieve. Take, for example, you then be able to think your way through, poverty, lack, and all of that. And talking about the speakers, like you rightly asked, this year we had, every year actually, one of the things we do is we are very careful as to who we invite on the platform, to come share with the people. And our choice of speakers, aside from certain internal criteria, that we look at, must also speak to the theme, the focus, of that particular year's edition. So this year you have IDN IDN used to be, if I'm not mistaken, used to be the West African director of Samsung Africa, I think. Right now, Elite a security outfit, which he owns. You have Mr. Kola Olugbodi of Background Check. Mr. Kola's story, for example, is one that I'm actually looking out for. I actually don't know if you've met him before. Kola Olugbodi is his name. He runs a Background Check Africa. This is a man who, crippled and all of that, and with all the all the daggers the society and the environment threw at him, he rose above all those odds, and he has become the man that he is right now. You have my friend Pastor Emmanuel Iran, a young man of God, doing exceptionally well, for himself, leading the people, being an inspiration to people. You also have Dami Oluwatoyinbo, that's another very good friend of mine. Dami is a creative genius, he's a multi-talented individual. You have Tricia Bees, who is a marketing expert, when it comes to online marketing of businesses and all of that. You also have Timmy Dakolo. Timmy is someone that people know. Take, for example, Timmy's story. I mean, you could see Timmy's rise from the slum in Warri or in Delta, where he grew up, to becoming the man that he is right now. People jam at Timmy's song. I doubt if anybody has really heard Timmy, sit down and share about his life with them. Am I missing any other person? Yeah, I think that's all that we have. IDN and then BC Sojoya Way. That's another phenomenal woman, who is doing exceptionally well for herself. She's a life coach, so she has all the needed tools and skills to being able to inspire the people, to leading themselves and making the most out of life. It's gonna be an amazing, conference. And people ask me, you don't stay over here, you abandon your family where you leave them, and you come to Nigeria every year to do this. So what's a need for you? Most of it is free, right? It's the inspiration behind it for me. Take, for example, I've been privileged to sit on this platform with Auntie Alaro over the years, and seeing people walk into the conference, listening to me the way, someone at home right now is watching me, and then making the decision to showing up at the conference, then reaching out to me and then telling me how that conference changed or tweaked something in the mindset means a whole lot to me. Take, for example, yesterday, one of our volunteers had posted the flyer of the conference on his WhatsApp status, and someone then commented and said, I should actually be at this conference on Saturday. He said, but I have an engagement, which will make it impossible. He said 4 years ago, his life had no direction. Talking about what you were referencing, that he had no direction, he had no admission, no nothing was moving for him. He said all he did was to listen to a particular, one of our speakers, then Tobiloba Ajayi, who rose above all the odds and broke all the, the ceilings and became a phenomenal woman that she is today. He went with that, and now he's living a good life for himself. So
persuading people to attend, all of these things you're saying, most certainly, lofty and everything. If anything, encouraging people to do what they can where they are is part of the things that we need to raise the nation any further. Because it's only when the people are well to do themselves that the nation can be well to do. But sometimes persuading people to even attend such a conference is a tough task.
You're right. You're right.
Because you're not asking them to come spend money.
You're right.
But because it is free, that might be an
if it is free, they will attend on one condition, that there is food. Because some people jokingly will ask you, say, conference, is there food?
Yeah, some people would actually. You see, the truth is that when you get to a breaking point, you get to understand that there is actually more to life. And maybe I should just use this opportunity to speak to someone who perhaps is watching. Maybe you're at home, you're in your office space, or wherever place you may be, and you're at a crossroad. where life makes no sense, no direction, no nothing, I think you should just make the investment, for next Saturday and be at the conference. This is the only thing I can assure you. You would look out for me after the conference, maybe a year after, 4 years after, like I heard the story of that gentleman just last night, and you'll be very, very thankful. And also, you'll be thankful to Channels Television, for partnering with us and making the opportunity available for you, to being able to listen and to watch this telecast this moment. It's humbling, the results.
Give us the details again.
Yeah, so it holds this Saturday, that's next Saturday, 21st of January, 2023. The venue is Pistis Hub. That's the mainland church of Elevation Church. That was the same place we've had like 2-3 previous editions. And the time is 9 a.m. 9 a.m. is 9 a.m.
Where is this hub?
Pistis Hub is in Maryland.
Maryland.
Yeah, number 1, Ikorodu Road. It's just by that Maryland junction, in the Keja here. Number 1, Ikorodu Road, Maryland. Starts by 9. Doors are open. Registration begins as early as 7 a.m. And the truth is that as early as 7.
Pre-register
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
You need to. The truth is that our seats are actually filling up very fast. So if you're watching me online, or you have a friend, or you have a son or daughter you would like to be a part of this conference, please visit LHC2023. That's LHC2023.eventbrite.com. Eventbrite is spelled EVENTBRITE.com. LHC2023 at eventbrite.com. Or
That's the email or something?
That's the link to register.
That should be LHC dots, right?
Yes, LHC2023.eventbrite.com. Yes. Then alternatively, you can search Wale Tejumade on Facebook, on Twitter, or on Instagram. You would see all the necessary details, that you may need here. I don't know why I also feel to, share with a parent, a father, a mother. If you have a teenager, a 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old, you can bring them over, to the conference venue yourself, and pick them up. They'll be very, very glad and very happy, for the investment, you're creating in their lives.
So that's the website. That's the
Eventbrite site. That's the Eventbrite site, yes.
Okay.
Yes, and if anyone is watching, say you're a business person, a business owner, you need to partner, sponsor, collaborate with us on this, you can reach us on 08027353710. 08027353710.
Okay, so for these young people,
yes, please.
One more thing, what are they to expect?
They should expect a change.
In Nigeria?
No, it's going to begin with them.
Because the change in Nigeria is what
You're right. You're right. A change in their thinking.
Okay.
A change in their mindset.
Okay.
They should expect to be inspired. One of the things we've always done, just as such that it will not be just talk and talk and talk and talk, is to give the participant a goal-setting sheet. All right, so you get to have your goal set, for the year. And for me as the convener, mid-year, towards the end of the year, I do like a recap, like a revisiting, of their goal settings or the goals they set for themselves, during the course, of the year. The major thing is the transformation. And you see, there are too many people whose lives been changed as a result of their presence, at the conference. Whoever is watching me right now should expect just the same thing, transformation. Like I said earlier on, self-leadership begins with self-awareness. Self-awareness cannot take place without a change in the way you reason, the way you think.
Now, the telephone number again, please.
08027353710. 08027353710.
And the website again is
LHC2023.eventbrite.com. Yeah.
Wale Tejumade and participants will have an opportunity to have a rethink, redefine, reinvent, and reposition themselves for greater exploits. Wale Tejumade, convener, Lofty Heights Conference, which will take place at Pistis Hub, Maryland Junction on the 21st of January, which is next Saturday.
From 7 a.m. you
Saturday.
said.
Registration begins 7 a.m. This conference kicks off 9 a.m.
Okay.
Before I leave, I just want to also take this medium to specially thank Mr. John Momo, in case he's watching, and please, if he's not, extend my gratitude to him. This is a man who's invested heavily in this conference in the past 6-8 years. I do not take that for granted for any reason. God bless you, sir. I'm grateful. That's on behalf of myself and the planning team. Thank you so much for all you do for the conference.
Wale Tejumade, convener, Lofty Heights Conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Auntie
for
Alera.
coming and telling us about this.
Thank you so much for having me.
Young people out there, go to that conference so you can have a chance to rethink, redefine, reinvent, and reposition yourselves.
And not just regret.
See you in just a moment with another interesting conversation.
Thank you for staying with us. Is traveling a hobby? A lifestyle? I don't know. As I said earlier, I love the destination. But that journey, I'd rather avoid it. But you know, many travel lovers pick traveling as a hobby. They just love it. While this sounds great, can all ask ourselves, is traveling really a hobby? Is it an adventure? Is it a learning space? What do you make of it?
It is all of those.
Anyway, you are a traveler, so
Exactly. Exactly. But all that is dwindling now as I get older. I think I've done my fair share.
I know, not when they call for another boat cruise. Anyway, joining us this morning is Yinka Falami from the National Association of Nigerian Travel Agencies. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much, Ayo. Thank you very much, Auntie Alera.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Is traveling a hobby or a lifestyle?
So before I go into that, I would also like to state that I'm also here in my personal capacity.
Okay.
Yeah, as the Chief Executive of Travel and Logistics Center.
Okay.
You said a lot of things, but I'll just help you. Yeah? I'll help you put it together. Travel is life. Travel is life. That's it. It's and I would always say that it's the most essential tool, yeah, to life, and it's integral to existence. Because if you look at the simplest definition of travel, this point to this point, there's a friction of distance, right? So anything that takes you from this point to that point is travel. And it's always been there. I think it's the only thing that will survive humanity, if there is anything like that. So it is life.
Because humans will always move.
Humans will always move.
At least you move from
and there would always be a friction of distance. COVID started and we said, oh, people will still travel. Just like Auntie Alera will still go on that boat cruise. So it is life and it's essential to lifestyle.
You know, okay, we'll talk about the lifestyle bit. Perhaps we should even plunge into it. How is it a lifestyle? Because, many people, when they travel, okay, let me put it this way. There is a culture a sizable number of people have, which is when it's time to go on vacation, they sell their leave, collect the money, collect their, what's that thing they collect in there?
Leave allowance.
Leave allowances, and stay at work. A good number of people do that. So perhaps the essence of travel or traveling is lost on people generally.
Yes, well, I think you are speaking for our generation, yeah?
Okay.
And, a quality company will not allow it. A quality company should not allow it because your leave, is integral to your work-life balance. Mm-hmm. So every good company understands, that there has to be a balance between the 4 major quadrants of life, yeah, which are work, that's the first one, your family, friends, and self. So a good company will, in our own time, so things like that happen. But with the millennials, nah. They want experiences. They will not give up their leave and allowances,
okay,
for money.
They would like to see the world.
They want to see the world, and every time. So when we were growing up, mostly you have summer and then, winter started to creep in, December travel. Yeah, but they want to travel every quarter, every time.
Some say that travel is also part of your education.
It is.
Do you agree with that?
100%. And I don't understand why I will agree with that, because I'm also faculty. I'm also involved in education. I've been in it for about 13 years. I am faculty of the Business School Netherlands. And you see, the first thing about travel is that it makes you a new environment, yeah, a new climate, immediately expands your imagination. So if it does expand your imagination, then you settle down to start learning. When my son was 2, he made his first trip, yeah, he did his first travel with his mom and his sister. And when I went to pick them at the airport, the first thing he said to me at 2 years, yeah, was that, Daddy, why is the steering on the wrong side in London?
Wrong side.
Yeah. So is that education? So when I explained to him, he learned it, and he would not forget that. He would not forget that. And then when you travel, you learn about new cultures, like the millennials. I always go to the millennials, because if you ignore them, you ignore them at your peril. Yeah. They want authentic experiences. When you have an authentic experience, have you learned? Yes, you have. So the idea of giving up your travel for money, that's old school.
Okay, well, let's grant it. But because one of the realities, please correct me if I'm wrong, a number of people want to travel, most certainly. But then they naturally also consider the costs of the trip, and with the exchange rates and having to travel to various parts of the world where the exchange rate is not has a cadence all on its own. You don't know what the naira is going to be to whatever currency in whatever part of the world other than the dollar. So people, is that a major consideration for you?
Yes, it's major in your considerations, but anything good to you must cost you something, yeah. And when we say travel, we're not talking about Europe, America.
We'll come to Nigeria.
Nigeria. There's something called staycation. Yeah, there's something called staycation. It became very popular, during COVID and immediately after COVID. And research shows that it will stay there, for long. So there was a time I used to go to Calabar. It was an experience for me, particularly the food.
We'll come to Nigeria, but let's go to that. Those are that. Because,
I think we have a foodie on our hands.
No, we'll get there. But
So when we say travel, when we say travel, it doesn't have to be as expensive as you expand it. It could be travel within Nigeria. How many states in Nigeria? Okay, maybe because you're in media. You'll be surprised that some people have not left Lagos.
You mean their local government?
Yes. So travel is not necessarily about Europe and America, and there's also something that is really coming up now. We are looking at intra-Africa travel. A lot of us have been to Europe and all of that. Yeah? And you'll be surprised I've never been to Ghana. How much will it cost me to go to Ghana? And everybody goes to Ghana and they have good experiences. So it depends on what your consideration set is. Yeah, I agree that it can be expensive, particularly now, and we probably will come to that, or maybe you invite me on another whatever. So, but whichever way, you can't discount the value of travel.
Okay, talking about those values now, you've told us about the education and everything. You'll talk about staycation in a little while, but generally, when people talk about travel, they think about going outside the country. But as you have mentioned, and I actually saw a video in the course of the week that had a sling of various exotic places in Nigeria. I was surprised that, okay, so we do have such places. So in terms of, when it comes to traveling, what are the reasons people should give themselves for the need to travel? Because perhaps that's one of the reasons. Many people don't go anywhere because they have no reason. Yes, they can't justify it in their heads why they need to.
So the first one and the most important one is mental regeneration. You refresh yourself mentally. And we said it the other time, and I think Antialero agreed to it. Yeah, the moment you step out and you go into a new climate and a new environment, there's a feeling of wellness. You know, everybody needs that subconscious gap. You know, you need to be taken away from, you know, your focus of stress and your routine. And then when you go out of your routine and you're in a different climate, you see that those things that are stressing you are probably not as important as they were. I am more productive to my business when I'm outside, because that's the time I'm out of that routine, and that's the time I can really think, sit back and think, you know, about what the right strategy should be when I get back to the office. Yeah. So, except you haven't done it before, once you've done it, you know, you lash onto it. Yeah. It helps your mental balance, and it educates you.
So to take the travel, what are the things to consider? There are, naturally, people have trepidations about security or a lack of it. When you talk about intra-national traveling, you've talked about Calabar. There are many people who have heard of so many other places. The what's that carnival in the north? The Doba.
The Doba, you have the Doba, you have Argungu.
Exactly. Yeah. Argungu Fish Festival and all of those. And so people hear about those things, but then they also hear about those other things that dissuade. So what are the things to consider?
So what are the things that dissuade? I think the emphasis on security all the time in Nigeria, I think is overrated. I think it's exaggerated. I mean, if you travel all over the world, you know, there's insecurity everywhere. True. And it doesn't stop you from traveling. You know, there are some, I don't want to mention countries, I usually don't like to mention, but I travel all the time, and, you know, sometimes, you know, you go to some corners and you feel very unsafe. Yeah, so I don't think that security, yes, it should be there, but I don't think the insecurity problem in Nigeria I don't think it's that bad. I don't think it'll stop you from.
When I was little, we used to go on holiday to then Midwest.
Yeah.
And we would go and carry what they call a dinner carrier, you know, a family. And then somewhere around Akure, we would stop, bring out the mats, sit down, bring out the dinner carriers, have a little picnic.
You can't do that anymore.
And then you get back in the car, and then the journey continues.
Yeah.
But it's a pity you're coming, because these are the things that made traveling such joy.
Yeah.
You know, you looked forward to it because you were going to picnic on the side of the road. You know, you can't do all those anymore. So traveling has become like a chore. If you're traveling within Nigeria, you must watch what time you leave, because you are targeting what time you must get there in daylight, and you must be attentive. You must watch your wing mirror, pay attention to the car beside you.
Pay attention to the news.
It has made it so tedious.
Yeah. So, you know, life changes. You know, just like you have that experience in Nigeria, yeah? There were experiences we had 30 years ago in the UK that you can't have anymore. The whole area is built up, yeah? And, you know, and like I said, yeah, I concede that, you know, I concede that. But every society is fast-paced, yeah? And I think that our society has moved beyond that, yeah? So we had those experiences then, but there are experiences that we have today that did not exist then. You know? So everything is on a trend. Yes, you can fly.
You couldn't fly then.
You couldn't fly then. You know, I mean, how many connections were there? I remember you had to go to Sokoto. I schooled in Sokoto, FGC Sokoto, you know, and if you missed that flight, you've missed it for like 2-3 days. You know, so I mean, you know, for everything that you lose, there's a compensation for it. Yeah, but it doesn't detract from the fact that travel is good, and from the reality that travel is good, and that travel is life.
Nigeria has a whole lot of places that you can go to, a whole lot of sites to see. But when we talk travel, the Nigerian immediately thinks about traveling abroad. Can you tell us some of the choice places within Nigeria which can attract tourists?
Okay, so I like to play to my strengths, yeah? And I told you severally. I am On the top of my head, I told you I went to Calabar,
Obudu Ranch.
Cattle Ranch, and the Calabar Festival. How many of us have experienced it? There's Doba, and we as Nanta are really getting involved with Doba. There's Arugungu. There's in Ijebu here. There's what is it?
Judeoba.
Judeoba. So we have your festival.
There's one other in Osun State.
But there are more. It's because there are specialties within travel. There are members in our association, NANTA, National Association of Nigeria Travel Agencies, that are more competent than I am on inbound tourism. And you'll be excited, particularly the young members that we have. You'll be excited to have them on the program because they will just blow your mind with the number of sites. Yeah, I mean, I went to just what is it called, Olumorok.
Yes.
I only visited the Olumorok about 3-4 months ago. That was my first time.
Well, I've been to the warm springs in Ikogosi.
Ikogosi. I haven't been there.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Water coming out of the ground and it is warm.
There too.
Not be say the toxic.
There's confluence. There's hot on one side. There's
so I should if you just permit me to come, I maybe what I should have done, and I could send like 2 copies to you. We had this brochure. We visited as Nanta. We had a stand in the World Travel Market, WTM, in the UK. Yeah. So we had this brochure, which is a compilation of travel sites or tour attractions in Nigeria, and it was very exciting, to visitors from other parts of the world, and with a lot of commitment. Oh, we're going to come to Nigeria, and they are not thinking security like we do, So I would send that to you. I will send like 2 copies to you. It's a comprehensive list of our tour sites, yeah. And then maybe next time I'm coming, I'll probably come with somebody, that can discuss that more. Particularly the younger ones. But there is a lot. There is a lot to Nigeria.
Now, you've spoken about, all of these things, and it's actually, I'm beginning to consider the possibility of maybe we like travel, because I love. You spoke about staycation the other time. Yeah. What does that mean?
Staycation means when you holiday within your country or your local environment. And it's growing now, and then it will help the local economy.
You do that?
Oh yeah. So okay, I'll tell you. My wife, she always tells me that you have a travel coming, but you don't like to travel. So she travels a lot, and my children travel a lot. And she will just go and check into a very good hotel for a weekend, and she's sitting in Lagos with the children. A lot of people are going to Akudu. Some people go to Ekpe. It's a change of environment. And you'll be surprised at the quality of the facilities that are in these locations. All you just need to do is to contact the right people that can put these tours together for you. Yeah? So I also talked about Calabar. I go to Calabar, I was going to do a business, some business with the government, so it took me there a lot. And anytime I went, I actually looked forward to going. Even when you go to Abuja sometimes, you have this different air. Because sometimes when I go to Abuja and I'm not very busy, you have this different air, and you think like you're on some form of vacation. So staycation is when your holiday is within your locality, yeah, or your country.
Let me make a comment that when women don't have to clean the house, cook, look after husband, look after children, when they don't have to do that, that's a wonderful vacation.
And they're on vacation, yeah.
So you can actually vacate at home. Anyway.
No, you can't vacate at home
because
you are going to cook.
Because you are going to cook, and then something to joy you.
In other words,
but you can vacate in Lagos. Yes, you can in Lagos, and she does that, and you'll be surprised at the number of people that do that. Some people just, they go out for the weekend with their whole family, and they're out for the weekend. Okay. And COVID made that popular, though.
Staycation.
Okay. COVID made that popular.
Yeah, because we're all trapped in our houses. And the moment the hotel started opening, people just got out. People went out for like a week.
Prisoners.
Yeah.
Let free.
So now, there is a sensibility that people may need to pay attention to when they have to travel. I mean, there was something very valid you said the other time, that it's a whole new environment when you move from where you are to another place altogether. Each locality, each geolocation has its sentiments, sensibilities, and sensitivities and all. So what are those things that you would recommend that people, as they plan their leave, because I know that companies are already collating leave, what's it called now? Leave schedules, for the entire year. So what are those things you would recommend to anyone when they choose a place? What are the things, when they choose a place to go to, what are the things that you would recommend that they look out for, pay attention to as they plan, even before they get there?
Well, the first thing I do is that the first thing that hits me that it's a hotel. What kind of hotel are you going to stay in? Is it a chain hotel? If it is not an environment that you're conversant with, I would always recommend a chain hotel, because with the chain hotel, most of the time they are run by quality standards. Most of the time, you find you can predict what to expect. Yeah. So, what attractions? What do you want to do there? I always go to the millennials. The millennials don't want to shop like you and I. They want to spend their money on experiences. Yeah? So if you are that type of person, you want to know what kind of experiences you will have in those locations. You also want to put, security, on the burner. You want to put security on the burner. And I always advise, you have a chaperone when you are abroad. And it's very easy to get that done now. Just work with a professional travel consultant or a professional tour manager, because we have relationships. We have relationships there, destination managers that we work with. Yeah. So whatever you want to do, the experience is there, the guide is there, and the protection is there. Even South Africa, it's easier to go to South Africa now because the issue of security is now on everybody's mind. Yeah. And you find a lot of the tour guides, they're conscious about it. And when you're out with the tour guide, you're fine. Most of the time you're fine. So when you are going to an environment that you are not conversant with, it is better, to be guided by the locals.
When you spoke about accommodation just now, give us your thoughts on this phenomenon that's getting more and more popular, the Airbnb, instead of staying in a hotel like you mentioned.
Okay, so I wouldn't, and with respect to, I think I prefer to stay in a hotel because I want to be taken care of. I don't want
to go on a holiday and be cooking.
No, I don't want any responsibility on me. I don't want any responsibility for security. I don't want to, have you shut the door? Have you locked the door? No, I won't. So I would always go. If we go in as a family, we will probably take 2 rooms, and those rooms, the standard rooms, then they adjourn. And then if you want to eat, you just order it.
What are the vulnerabilities that people may be tempted to get into, which they need to be, you would suggest that they be careful or cautious about?
I don't understand. Can you take that question again?
What are the things that you think people might be vulnerable to that they need to pay attention to in order to take precaution?
You could be handpicked anywhere in the world. Your pocket could be picked anywhere in the world. Like, for example, now, when you're in those departmental stores, even in Marks and Spencer, and in our days, when we were young, you could drop your whatever, and you go and shop and go and pick it. Nobody takes it for you again. And if you drop it, just by your side and walk maybe just a meter away, somebody will come and tap you and say, pick your bag. Because the next thing, it is gone. And you hear a lot of all these things, yeah? So somebody has said that they lost £2,000, their phone, their cards, and all of that. So keep your things tight. So most women use their, what do you call it? These packs. And they put everything there instead of their usual handbags. We slip everything in our pockets. My wallet is there and all of that. So I'm always very tight and tidy. So keep your things close everywhere in the world. Just like you're in an Owambe party in Lagos, Don't put your phone on the table. That applies everywhere in the world. Applies everywhere in the world. So I think that you should be sensitive to your location. I think that you should also be conscious about your security. Yeah? So that's an integral part. Even in your home, you're conscious about security.
But it doesn't matter where you are.
It doesn't matter where you are.
It's something we haven't really spoken about, maybe some other time when you come here. And that is the tourism ambit of all of this. I mean, there is a relationship between tourism and travel, right?
Yeah.
Basically, what's the relationship?
The relationship between tourism and travel is that travel enables tourism.
Well, that's out of the bag. Okay. Because I mean, I heard you say you use the word tour from time to time. I know that there is a relationship. I know that traveling enables tourism. You know, I just needed for people to know that when we're talking about travel, we're actually invariably talking about tourism one way or the other.
Travel is the physical and commercial function that enables tourism.
Okay. So without travel, there can be no tourism.
Nah. Without travel, there is no life. I told you that travel is life.
Okay.
How easily do you think Nigeria can achieve its potential of being an important tourism destination?
You are looking for a seminar topic.
Okay, that's a seminar topic, but yeah, so we can talk. We can do that some other time. I'll be very happy to come in again. I think the most important infrastructure to making Nigeria, what Antaleo said, is love for country.
Patriotism.
Without love for country, we won't get anywhere. So as a matter of policy, I do not engage in any negative discussion about Nigeria, and I do not share any negative video about Nigeria. I will take the feedback, but I will not engage in it. You know, because I also have some background in communication, So all these things happen everywhere, you know. Okay, let me not go there because they're press people.
Please, let's not go there. Because I see that we're already getting
press people
riled up. Well, Inka Falame is a member of the National Association of Nigerian Travel Agencies.
I'm the vice president.
And vice president
of
National
the Lagos
Association of Nigerian Travel Agencies Lagos Zone, as well as Chief Executive Officer Travel
and Logistics.
Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you very much.
We'll definitely drag you back. I think that's the appropriate word.
I will be happy to come.
And that's a tourism person, just right beside the water, sitting there.
I hope you will go and join that person very soon.
I don't like water like that.
Okay, sorry. Well, welcome to the home stretch. Well, we have a chartered accountant as our guest today, who is now a photographer and a cinematographer and a film producer. His name is Adewale Tosin Ogeyingbo.
Yes, Ogeyingbo.
Ogeyingbo. That's a very strange
dialect.
Strange name, but he will tell us what it means. Yes, Tosin, what does your name mean?
Adewale Oluwatosin Ogeyingbo. Ogeyingbo simply implies beauty doesn't fit. Ogeyigbo, that it doesn't fit.
Call it like that now, Ogeyigbo.
What
beauty.
state is that from?
Okay.
It's from Ogun State.
Oh, okay.
Ogun State, Ijebu, to be precise.
Okay.
Ogeyigbo.
You should have known. So what is a chartered accountant doing working all this waka that you are working?
Well, if I have to put it straight, it's not something I actually look forward to, as in that someday, after going through, I actually had my ND in accounting and my BSc in accounting in Obafemi Awolowo University, and then took a while before I got chartered. But I had a passion from the time I left school, which was in 2005, which was actually having to, hold the camera and then do different angles, to recording. Then it became like a passion to me. So
I have my own theory as to why you could not stay in that profession. You want to hear it? The way you look.
No, okay. If actually some of my colleagues that were actually finished from the university are watching this, they will affirm to you that while I was in school, I was always dressed in suits and tie, and I keep low cuts. But it was when I started doing cinematography, and then sometimes you have to quickly hurry out of the house, and then you start paying little details to some things, and then the other saying the hair starts, locking up, and it became there's something in fashion that everybody's carrying a locked.
Well, you certainly wouldn't have allowed to carry that. Wouldn't have been allowed to carry that hair, being a chartered accountant.
Well, I'm not really sure that will be allowed.
Chartered accountant, you go and audit accounts of some big company and they take their account from you immediately, I promise you.
Okay.
Anyway, maybe that's why.
I actually left this like almost close to 3 to 4 years before I started keeping dreads.
Okay.
And
so why did you leave that to go into this?
Okay. Like a close friend of mine told me that from one side he already knows that I was going to leave accounting. But truly, I was very good at what I did because before I left, I was heading internal control. And then the insight I have into IT actually helps. I became a system administrator for Pastel Evolution. And even while I was in my organization, some other companies outside were actually calling so that I can help set up their accounting system. So it wasn't that I was not doing very well in that aspect.
Still, you left it.
Yes, but because at a point, I found out that I enjoy working. I enjoy editing. For instance, when I was still doing accounting, I know I closes around 5 o'clock, traffic plus or minus, I get to around 8 o'clock. And then I start editing from maybe around 10. And I sleep somewhere around 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock with my system still on if it's rendering. So once they take lights and then the inverter beeps spin, I kind of wake up. So at a point, it becomes obvious that if I continue to do that, I was going to wear out very fast, one. And then two, the income that I was getting from my gigs and the accounting were now competing. And it came to a point that I found out that Monday to Friday, and I net the expenses and everything out of it. And then one of my outings, I said, we actually paid what I would get in a month. So why not just, put the other.
He even still use the accounting language. He nets.
Yeah, so why not just focus on it and, the excess capacity that I have, I can actually put into building myself in some other areas.
Now, there are those who would wonder if how accounting, for instance, has helped to helped you in this new career path that you have selected. Because there are those who would say, look, as soon as I'm done or I was done with my certificate, I just took it and gave it to my dad. And then I went ahead and chased my passion. Is there any contribution of accounting to what you do now?
As an accountant, we are like an all-round person. While we're in school, they always say that you got scattered, and then later on you become chartered. That means you have a little knowledge of almost everything. If you are working in a television organization, you have to have some insight into how the costing are actually being placed. So for me, it has not been a loss. In fact, it is a gain. Because when I started doing my, events and video coverage, I easily got insight into how to do my costing. And then at the time I was actually speaking to a friend, I said, do you know that you turned out so many events at your own detriment? And he asked why. I said, can you imagine that, okay, on a Saturday you are at home, you don't have a gig, and then someone actually calls you to actually cover an event. And then you put all your costs into place, the cost of renting a camera, the cost of you actually transporting yourself there, your own allowance for handling that camera. And then the offer the person is actually giving you can actually cover all that. If you turn it down, that means you're actually running at a loss at that point in time. Leaving alone that there's some things that you would do that will actually, bring in some other gigs that you have. I'd had clients that calls, ahead of time. Like there's an event I did in December, and I actually covered the prior event in March. And as at April or so, the clients kept calling that should come in and he wants to pay for the one they're going to do in December. I said, no, I'm not collecting the money because I'm not going to bill for it yet. I will wait till when I know that I can actually appropriate the cost in the right direction.
Yes.
So I would say that for me, accounting has been a plus for me. And I applied it into acquisition of my assets, in which I know when to actually set money aside for replacement of each of the equipment I'm using, which in accounting is called depreciation. And then there's some asset that I have that had come to a point that you just have 10 naira worth, the net worth of the asset in your account. So with those equipment, I know, okay, I've had this for 4 years, and then if I had actually been setting X amount of money for it, at the end of 4th year, if another newer version comes out, I can actually buy another one. And guess what? As at 2000, when the lockdown was on, 2020, had more than 10 cameras. And because of the advent of the live streaming, a lot of churches, a lot of friends were asking for the camera. So I started selling. Because in my head, I know definitely that, okay, what the technology you're talking about is actually in this. But for me, I can actually forecast that, okay, at a point in time, there's going to be a newer technology that comes into place. And guess what? Those assets were acquired a long time ago, and I've depreciated them. I've saved towards it, replacement, so you can
let them go.
Let them go.
How many cameras do you have now?
Well, I have close to 10 now as well, because I teach photography. So, and sometimes when I go to the school, I have to go with equipment that, the student can actually practice with. And then with my accounting inside, I know I can do rentals as well. So if I'm not going out to do works, I can actually release the equipment for those people that have gigs. So while I'm sitting at home, I'm having residual income.
So there's no point even asking if it's been worth it for you to leave accountancy and go into this?
Well,
because I know the answer. You've already given us the answer. Ajay Wole.
Yes, to an extent. But sometimes I feel it when I meet some of my friends and they're well, set, looking this, I think that. So
what do you mean they're all set?
It's always a pride then when we go to the office and we put the tie on and everything. And then again, okay, I'm leaving this out. One of my directors said in a meeting when we were actually doing a proposal, and then it was like one would make an investment. And he said, how many accountants have used? All the accountants will actually support a particular view that you shouldn't go into that investment. And some people that are not accountants, developers, and like said, okay, it's profitable. And he said, do you know what, that accountants are never that rich? And I said, no, because inside of me, I said, no, I'm going to be rich. And he said, you know why? Because you guys take calculated risk. And not even calculated risk, you don't like taking risks. That you have been trained all the while to actually grow your income at a particular preset. But if, as an accountant, you have that understanding that you can take calculated risk, then everyone is actually, accountant works everywhere. There's no organization that you don't have accountants. So me working as a videographer, as a cinematographer, is a plus to me anyway.
Okay. Well, enough of the accounting part of it. Now let's talk about the business that you really, do now. There are people who make these coverages, live streamings, and all those things. People just have the experience. They get into the hall, they see the videos on the screen, or they receive the link, they just click the link, they are part of the conference or whatever the event is, or they just receive the pictures of their events, or the video coverage, or edited whatever it is of their events. They don't know what goes into it. And truth be told, no one cares.
Yeah,
we just click the link. There's audio, there's video, we're good. There's no audio, we are complaining. Give us an insight into what goes on behind the scenes of the things people see and enjoy on the screens.
Wow. Okay. Now, I'm into film productions, and with that, you can predict when you're going to shoot a film. Precise. But when it comes to events, it is a different ball entirely. They call them videographers because you have to do a point and shoot. How you see it, you shoot it. But for professionals, we take time to actually, for instance, you call me for a burial program, as in to cover. And one of the things I will ask is that where is the venue? What time is it taking place? And they're like, so once I know is a venue that I'm familiar with, I can go back to my scratchbook and bring out some things to know about it. Otherwise, I will visit the place. For instance, if you are going to do a live stream, you have to go there before the event day, do what we call a speed test. That's the number one thing you
For
do.
the internet use.
Yes, the internet you use there. You do a speed test on it to know how fast, whether you can actually do a live streaming or not. Then if you're satisfied that, okay, this particular modem will work, or this particular
Network
service will be what to be used there, then you move further to, is it going to be a 3-camera work, or is it going to be a single camera? If it's going to be more than a single camera, then you have to either decide we're going to use a wireless transmitter. And then when you're using a wireless transmitter, you have to know the area of coverage you can do, and then interference that
Just
is
to
into
be clear,
place.
this wireless transmitter, because you are many people don't know, I have any idea what you're talking about. So
Okay.
this wireless transmitter is for what? The camera, the mic? Because
Yes, for events, the wireless transmitter is actually for the cameras.
okay.
So you for instance, you having some of the events, there's maybe an overflow, or the event actually flew from outside to inside. For instance, when you're doing a wedding reception, for instance, you see that the couples comes from outside into the church. So when you're covering, and then the church, building itself is actually a barrier. So when you're using the camera outside, and people inside the church actually want to see what is going on, you have your barrier. So you have to calculate at what point, and in particular place that you're going to put your cursor. Your cursor actually involves your mixer, the receiver of your transmitter, and then where you actually plug every other things that you now send your signal back to the live feed that you have in the auditorium, or maybe you have a system that you are streaming from. Not forgetting that you must have calculated where you will position your internet, which it will receive maximum, because there's some auditorium, once you bring in the internet from outside to inside, it changes from either 3G to Edge, or it changes from 3G to non-available.
To no G at all.
So to no G. So they have to determine exactly where to place it. So when you do that calculations, then you can actually say, okay, this is the distance that I'm going to go. And then if I'm going to be at this distance, then you can decide I'm going to use either a wide lens to zoom lens. So when you're using
You're already going into your lectures now. We don't really need the lectures right now. But because somewhere, what's wide lens? What's lens? I don't know what to say. So essentially my question is around the fact that people don't really know what goes on behind the scene. Do you think people appreciate the work, the logistic requirements that go into these live events?
I don't think they do. Okay, let me give you a live example. Yesterday, I was at my mechanic workshop, and then there was an event I covered in December. And then one of the photographers there, which was doing the video, actually called that he lost a clip. And then he has been trailing me all around. And I said, okay, come and meet my mechanic workshop. I'll actually give you the footage. So when he got there, I said, what happened? He said, you won't believe it, that he attended the vendors meeting. And then the event planner said that the food for the photographers and the videos guys are going to be kept separately. So when we are done, or at a point in time, he can actually give us the food, so we look for how to eat. So he left his camera and went to eat. And unfortunately for him, the person coordinating the video was actually the one dancing at that point in time. So he missed the entrance of that woman into the stage. And then when the event proper starts, so he said he submitted the video, and the woman come back and said, I will not pay you. I call you specifically because of myself and Mrs. That. Why will you go ahead and do this? Then I said, how you done? I said, well, number one thing is that I don't cover an event with one camera. I don't. I use 2 cameras. And then the second thing is that Gala has actually been saving the life of photographers for a very long time. So I said, all my staff knows that when we go for a quest like that, we come fasting and then we have a Gala at our pocket. So even if you are extremely hungry, you have to just bring it. So they don't really appreciate it. And guess what? There are times that you go to the they point at what you can eat, and then they tell you that you have to hold on. When people have guessed that, as in people have finished eating, then we'll start photograph. And then the question is that, are we not human? And meanwhile, the camera that you are carrying is not really this. Like, for instance, some of the cameras we use can actually buy everything on that table. Everything, including maybe some that I usually joke a lot about this. Like, when people come to rent camera from me and they don't come, without Uber or with their car, say, do you know that that camera is more expensive than your car? So they don't look at it, so they underestimate what we do. And the funny part of it is just that when you now miss a clip, that's when they know how valuable you are. They give makeup artists a lot of money to do the makeups that before the event proper starts, they start wearing out. But meanwhile, the person that's going to document it, you have not paid. When you're going to buy the cow and, buy the rice, the clothes, the tailor, and every other thing, you are paid in full. And then you want someone to cover your event. And then you say, that's too much. And then there have been instances that I advised them, and somebody has offered me some ridiculous amount, like was talking about 70,000 and 100,000. I said, man, you know what? You are offering a lot. If I were you.
That was in the days of VHS.
Well, I said, well, if I were you, just use that money to buy phone.
And
then use the phone to cover your event beautifully. Just give it to somebody.
We're running out of time. Let me just ask you this one. As Alero started, you have transited from accounting to, what you're doing now. How easy was that transition for you? I'm asking for someone who is also thinking of a career change, but they are afraid how it will turn out.
Okay.
What should that person consider?
The question I ask myself is what you have actually said, the last statement you made, they fail. What will you do if money is not involved? What will you do? If it's not about money, what will you do? So for me, I had to leave it aside. I tell my apprentice that if you start your career looking out for money, you would, end it looking for money and you will never find it. So some people are afraid of losing the salaries they are earning, for the fact that, okay, if you are doing events or cinematographer, that you don't know where your next meal is coming from. In the same vein, when you are working for somebody, because you don't know whether the person will pay you at the end of the month. So if you can put those considerations in place, then you can actually know that you have to follow your passion.
Somebody is going to tell you that federal government will pay me no matter what happens.
Do you know how many federal government workers have not been paid?
We're out of time.
Thank you very much.
Well,
very interesting. So you have no regrets, obviously, for leaving accounting for...
Has he left accounting? Or rather, has accounting left?
I didn't leave accounting.
Okay.
I still practice. I still keep my records.
Okay.
I have my invoicing systems and I do my costing.
Adewale Tosin.
Ogeyibo.
Yes. Ogeyibo. A chartered accountant, turned photographer and cinematographer and film producer. Thank you very much for being our guest on Sunrise this morning.
Thank you.
And Tosin Ogeyibo ends Sunrise for this morning. Thank you for letting us be a part of your Saturday morning. We'll bring you a fresh edition next week. I'm Alera Edu, wishing you all the best. And my partner says...
Grab your cocoa. Sorry. Get your PVC. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend.